Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Live at 4. A busy day today, so let's get right to it. Here's what's making news on this Wednesday. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is delivering the articles of impeachment to the Senate. We'll share the latest from Washington. As that happens, Wisconsin voters continue to form their opinions on President Trump, and the Democratic candidates will have the latest numbers from the Marquette Law School poll. And as allegations against a Rock County superintendent's behavior grow, how a former employee says he created a culture of fear. Let's take a live look now inside the U.S. Capitol, where Nancy Pelosi is formally delivering the articles of impeachment to the U.S. Senate. This comes 28 days after the House voted to formally impeach the president. These are live pictures. These 7 managers were named this morning of the impeachment trial. They were Adam Schiff and Representative Jerry Nadler, Representative Hakeem Jeffers, Representative Zoe Lofgren, Representative Val Demings, Senator Jason Crow, and Representative Sylvia Garcia. The managers are essentially the moderators of the impeachment trial. They will preside over the trial and keep it on pace and navigate it as the trial begins. Right, and it could go on for a couple of weeks. This is mostly a formality. Of course, the articles of impeachment were drawn up 28 days ago, and it's been sort of a standoff between Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell before she delivers to the Senate, and the Senate can now then start the trial. Apparently without witnesses at first. They'll vote on that later on, as they did with the Clinton impeachment a few years ago. So it's underway. We'll be watching that closely, and we'll rejoin it if we need to. But first, let's get a check on the weather. Chris Reese is in the Weather Center, and we've had a little bit of everything today. Chris, we've had a little freezing drizzle and some snow earlier today. It's been a little slippery outside.
Yeah, that's right, guys. Things are certainly still damp and slick out here on the patio as well. That's the one thing I want to make sure that everyone is mindful of. Doppler track, as we went through the day, showed you these rounds as they moved on through. None of them were totally major in terms of impact, but it does not take a lot to create some slick spots. It's still a very wintry scene out there. I think we're going to keep that wintry scene around for, well, some time. Even though we're clearing out tonight, you're going to want the coats tomorrow with temperatures that are going to be starting out in the single digits. And then we do keep our eyes on the weekend for a potential snowmaker that's going to be moving our direction. In fact, winter storm watches are already in effect. So as we go towards the main weather segment at about 4:30, we're going to talk about this system and what we're watching, along with what we know and what we don't know. There's still plenty of questions to be answered along with that one. In terms of first alert traffic, we are still watching the roadways. So far, no big issues showing up. This is the Beltline at Park Street. The roads are clear, mainly just wet, but still be mindful of isolated slick spots showing up, especially on bridges and overpasses. Your slowest speeds right now are, of course, in the eastbound direction, especially once you get past Seminole Highway and then work your way towards John Nolan. We're going to be watching that traffic as things begin to increase in terms of your evening commute traffic volume as we go through the show.
All right, Chris, we'll see you in a few minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Let's return to this Capitol, where the articles of impeachment are being delivered by Nancy Pelosi and the 7 managers to Mitch McConnell and the Senate. 7 House managers, as we said earlier, have been named, and together they have delivered the articles the House voted along party lines nearly 4 weeks ago to impeach President Trump on charges of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Natalie Brand reports from Capitol Hill.
The Senate will soon formally receive the articles of impeachment after a nearly month-long standoff with the House.
The resolution is adopted.
Earlier, the House voted on a resolution to appoint the 7 House managers who will act as prosecutors in the Senate trial. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff will be the lead manager.
By selecting these particular batch of managers, the Speaker has further proven she's not interested in winning the minds, the hearts, or even following the Constitution.
It's not personal, it's not political, it's not partisan. It's patriotic.
President Trump responded to the House proceedings during a White House trade ceremony with Chinese officials.
They have a hoax going on over there. Let's take care of it.
Ahead of the start of the Senate trial, the House Intelligence Committee has released new documents and text messages from indicted businessman Lev Parnas, who says he helped the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, pressure Ukraine to investigate the Bidens.
Those documents from Parnas revealed that an ally of the president may have surveilled Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch before she was recalled from Ukraine.
The release of this new information dramatically underscores the need for witnesses and for documents.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has said the question of witnesses and documents will be voted on after opening arguments. The Senate impeachment trial is expected to begin early next week. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
And White House counsel Pat Cipollone will act as the lead attorney for President Trump in the Senate trial. U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts will preside. And today we get a better picture of how Wisconsin voters view the race to the White House.
Eric Franke joins us now with more on the latest Marquette Law School poll. Eric?
Yeah, that's right, Susan and Mark. Still got a while to go before Wisconsin voters head to the poll for the April 7th presidential primary, but 83 days, as we know, it'll come and go quickly. Now with Election Day on the horizon this calendar year, the former Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Bernie Sanders each lead President Trump. These are in hypothetical head-to-head matchups, 49-45 for Biden, 47-46 for Senator Sanders. The polling suggests a win in Wisconsin for President Trump in head-to-head matchups with both Elizabeth Warren and Pete Buttigieg. Now, this is the final poll before voters caucus in Iowa.
When we're back here in February with our next look at the data, those votes will have taken place, and we'll see who really is surging here as well as nationally, as well as in those states. But it's been a really...
And the Iowa caucus will be Monday, February 3rd, followed 8 days later by the New Hampshire primary. Super Tuesday is March 3rd. And by the way, that polling was of 800 registered Wisconsin voters. It was conducted between January 8th and Sunday, so before the president's visit last night and before the Democratic debate in Iowa last night. Now, if you want a complete look at the poll and the many other topics surveyed here, we've got a link at channel3000.com.
All right, Eric, thank you.
President Trump signed the first phase of a long-awaited trade agreement with China today. President Trump and Chinese Premier Liu signed the first phase of a new trade deal, signaling the end of the trade war between the U.S. and China. The agreement comes after a nearly two-year-long trade war between the two countries, which hurt American farmers and the world economy. Under the deal, China has agreed to buy $200 billion of U.S. goods, including soybeans and pork, over the next 2 years.
Together we are righting the wrongs of the past and delivering a future of economic justice and security for American workers, farmers, and families.
In a letter to President Trump, Chinese leader Xi Jinping, who was not in attendance, called the deal good for China, the U.S., and the world. Phase one of the deal leaves in place tariffs on about $360 billion in Chinese imports. Under the plan, Beijing has also agreed to stop the theft of intellectual property and refrain from manipulation of its currency.
2019 was the second warmest year on Earth. That is according to federal climate scientists. And that is the finding of a new report released today from NASA and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It finds 2019 was 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit above average. The agencies also say the last 5 years, which have been plagued by wildfires and extreme weather, were the top 5 hottest on record. In the United States, 2019 was only the 34th warmest year on record, but Alaska had its hottest year ever.
We're not over the edge yet. We're not past the point where we can't make a better life for ourselves in the future. If we wait too much longer, it is going to be too late.
2019 was also the second wettest year on record in the U.S. NOAA says 14 weather disasters hit the nation last year, including flooding in the Midwest that caused $1 billion in damage or more.
A string of avalanches buried dozens of people alive in Pakistan. Villagers with shovels are frantically searching for survivors, but so far are only pulling out bodies. At least 60 people are dead, and the toll is expected to rise, with many still missing. Much of the devastation is in Pakistan-controlled Kashmir, where heavy snow and rainfall triggered landslides and flooding. The military is using helicopters to evacuate people stranded in rural areas. Other choppers are dropping food and survival kits until more help arrives. The harsh winter weather is also affecting neighboring Afghanistan. At least 39 people have died this week. A Milwaukee man accused of killing his one-year-old child is headed to trial. A criminal complaint alleges James Johnson struck Alonzo Lamar multiple times in the head, punching him and hitting him because he wouldn't stop crying on New Year's Day. Johnson is charged with first-degree reckless homicide, child neglect, and physical abuse of a child.
The Department of Natural Resources and the Department of Health Services is recommending fish consumption advisories for some area bodies of water. A recent sampling of fish showed elevated types of PFAS in fish tissue and surface water in Starkweather Creek and Lake Monona. PFAS are a group of human-made chemicals that are used in numerous products, including non-stick cookware, fast food wrappers, and stain-resistant sprays. It's also found in some types of firefighting foam, although the Madison Fire Department recently switched to foam without PFAS.
Kids in Sun Prairie will have a new place to go. Today was the grand opening of the Sun Prairie Boys and Girls Club. $1 million of the money used to build the facility was donated by the John and Joellen McKenzie family, who own apartment buildings in the area. Because of that, the new building will be known as the McKenzie Boys and Girls Club.
Accusations against a Rock County superintendent's treatment of staff and faculty are growing, according to the Beloit Daily News. The school district of Beloit's HR director and the executive director of school leadership have filed a complaint against Superintendent Dr. Stanley Monroe. In their complaint, they say he bullied staff members, lied about records requests, and intimidated administrators. Today, News 3 Now sat down with a former employee who shared her experiences.
He has a way of, if he doesn't like you, you don't have a shot. Like, he holds a grudge like I have never seen before. He basically is very cold, and he doesn't like address you at all. Like, he would walk right by me and not speak to me.
Tonight on News 3 Now, we'll have more from that staff member, as well as how the district is responding tonight. More than 100 Wisconsin firefighters are lobbying for a bill today that they say will save lives.
We first told you about the bill last week, which would remove barriers for public safety officers to get workers' compensation for post-traumatic stress disorder. Madeline O'Neill explains what happens next.
Well, as things stand right now, a Supreme Court case ruling from 1974 makes it really difficult for emergency responders to meet the standard required for workers' compensation for PTSD. That's why firefighters met at Cooper's Tavern on the Square before heading to the Capitol to meet with legislators. Paramedic Devin Anders has dealt with bouts of PTSD and says so have many of his coworkers. And he knows how difficult it can be to do your job if it's not properly treated.
If we can make it so that people are able to come back to the job instead of being forced out or worse, you know, having such mental anguish that they're, you know, contemplating taking their own lives, this is essential legislation.
This bill does have bipartisan support. A senator in support of this bill expects it to be on the Senate floor next week. Coming up at 6, we'll tell you about limitations to the bill and what additions emergency responders are hoping to make.
All right, Maddie. We'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you, Maddie. Still to come at 4, do you like your job? Well, if not, the list of the best jobs in America was just released.
We'll tell you which jobs top the list when Live at 4 continues.
You're watching News 3 Now, live at 4. For an accurate forecast you can trust, watch First Alert Weather.
It's going to be a big weekend for Packer fans. Starting Friday, we'll have team coverage with our Melissa Kim and Adam Duxter from San Francisco ahead of the NFC Championship matchup between the Packers and the 49ers. The winner, of course, is headed to the Super Bowl. Well, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has announced its official 2020 class.
It includes some posthumous honors. Take a look. The Notorious B.I.G. will be inducted. The other inductees include Depeche Mode, the Doobie Brothers, Whitney Houston, 9 Inch Nails, and T-Rex. The 35th Annual Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony will be held on May 2nd in Cleveland. We're getting an unprecedented look into how the existence of 2 popes at the Vatican is proving awkward.
The co-author of a new book on celibacy is out today in France, and the co-author is Pope Benedict. Benedict XVI is just the 2nd pope to resign in the church's 2,000-year history. Benedict argued for the necessity of celibacy, writing that serving the Lord requires the total gift of a man. Pope Francis is contemplating a rule change recommended by bishops, allowing the ordination of older married men in remote regions of the Amazon, where there is currently a priest shortage.
Of course, everybody knew that a retired pope is in the church always is a difficult situation.
Well, this created such a mess that Benedict's personal secretary reached out to the main author of the book, Cardinal Robert Sarah, asking him to remove Benedict as the co-author, calling it a misunderstanding and adding in a statement that Benedict had not authorized a joint authorship. Well, Target's holiday shopping season missed the mark this year. The nation's 3rd largest general retailer reported a sales gain of just 1.4% in November and December of 2019 at stores open at least a year. It's below the company's guidance for the period and well short of the 5.7% growth it had a year earlier during the same period. The Minneapolis-based company pointed to weak sales of electronics and toys. Target also announced a shakeup of its executive team in the wake of the disappointing holiday sales. A new list of the best jobs in America has just been released by the job rating firm Glassdoor.
Tech jobs are dominating once again. Surprise, surprise. Front-end engineering, or engineer that is, that's also known as the person who builds websites, is the #1 job in America for 2020. It's based on job satisfaction, salary, and job openings. Last year, tech jobs were just 5 of the top 10 on the list. This year, for the first time ever, the top 7 jobs are in tech fields, including data scientist and software engineer.
Every company is a technology company in this day and age. So we're going to continue to see technology jobs reign at the top of the best jobs list.
At last check, Glassdoor says there are over 13,000 openings for front-end engineering nationwide. The highest non-tech job on the list is speech pathologist, coming in at number 8. Overall, the survey finds many healthcare jobs in the top 50.
Jeopardize the security of our elections, the integrity of our elections.
Here's Nancy Pelosi. She has just delivered the articles of impeachment, and she is speaking in the nation's capital. Let's listen in.
When the managers walk down the hall, they will cross a threshold in history, delivering articles of impeachment against the President of the United States for abuse of power and obstruction of the House. As we make that history, we will be making progress for the American people. Progress in support of our Constitution, progress in honor of the sacrifice and the vision of our founders, progress in honor of the sacrifice of our men and women in uniform, and progress for the future of our children. Make it be very clear that this president will be held accountable, that no one is above the law, and that no future president should ever entertain the idea that Article 2 says that he can do whatever he wants. And so with that, I will sign the resolution transmitting the articles of impeachment to the Senate, which will be delivered by our managers, of whom I'm very proud. When they bring this over, we'll set in motion a process on the Senate side probably tomorrow. I don't know their schedule, but it may be as soon as tomorrow. The senators will take an oath of office. They will take a special oath of office to do impartial judges and do impartial justice according to the Constitution and the laws. Let's hope that they uphold that oath that they take tomorrow. And so now I'm very honored to be here with our 6 chairmen who worked so hard to help us uphold the Constitution with their legislating, their investigating, their litigating. You know, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee is part of the managers, Jerry Nadler, Mr. Schiff, the distinguished chairman of the Intelligence Committee, House Select Committee on Intelligence, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, the chair of the Financial Services Committee, Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, Madam Chair of the Oversight Committee, Congressman, Mr. Chairman, Elliot Engel of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and Richie Neal, Chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. We thank them for all of their difficult work, and we honor our darling Elijah Cummings, who said, one day we were dancing with the angels, what would we say about what we did at this difficult time in our country's history? And then I'm very proud that Mr. Nadler and Mr. Schiff are part of our managers, but I want to acknowledge our other managers who are with us, a freshman member, but I shouldn't say freshman. These, they've been here 1 year, accomplished great things. Congressman Jason Crow of Colorado, where are we? Congresswoman Val Demings of the state of Florida, Congresswoman Garcia of Texas. Were we all here? Where's Hakeem? Hakeem, our distinguished chair of our caucus, Hakeem Jeffries of New York. Is that everybody? And Zoe Lofgren. This is Zoe's 3rd impeachment. She was for the Nixon impeachment, she was a staffer for a Judiciary Committee member, Don Edwards of California. She was a member of the Judiciary Committee on the Clinton impeachment, and in her own right, a member of the Judiciary Committee, and now a member of the Judiciary, chair of House Administration, which oversees elections, important to all of this, and a manager. So with that, I thank them all for their leadership and their service, and I'm now going to proceed to sign the articles.
That is House Speaker Nancy Pelosi officially signing the articles of impeachment, which were passed 28 days ago. By signing them now and presenting them to the Senate, the trial in the Senate can begin. It's only the 3rd time in the United States history that a trial will be held for an impeachment of the President of the United States. On to stocks now. The signing of phase 1 of the trade deal with China sent stocks into record territory. The Dow Industrials added 90 points, sending the blue chip index above the 29,000 mark. The Nasdaq gained 7. The S&P 500 was up 16. And as always here on Live at 4, when the Dow notches another milestone, adding 1,000 points, have a little toast.
It just gives us an excuse to toast with something. So today we've got some nice hot coffee.
That is good. We need that today.
We do
that smells
need it.
good.
Yeah, we do need it today.
We're going to be right back, so stay with us. Welcome back. The Centers for Disease Control estimates that 1 in 59 children is identified with autism spectrum disorder.
Dr. Tina Iyama Curtis is a developmental pediatrician. She spent decades devoted to the clinical care of children with autism spectrum disorder. She's retired now, and that gave her time to write this book. She is the author of the book Diagnosing and Caring for the Child with Autism Spectrum Disorder, a practical guide for the primary care provider. Dr. Iyama Curtis, good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Congratulations on the book.
Thank you so much.
Now, you wrote this book primarily for physicians who are going to be treating children?
Primary care providers, so that now includes nurse practitioners and physician's assistants who are doing a lot of the heavy lifting in primary care.
Because when I was reading, I noticed you mentioned when you were early in your career, an autism diagnosis was quite rare.
We only diagnose the most severe children.
And now?
And now it's a very broad spectrum, but they all have some similarities. They all have some difficulty with social skills and communication, the ability to relate to other people. Those are very common, and it's also associated with some behaviors that are...
And you wrote this book for physicians, but parents could get something too. I mean, it's an easy read. It's not all technical.
I wrote it to be an easy read. I wanted it to be accessible and conversational so that people might read it. That was the goal.
So was your motivation to write it because as a primary care provider yourself, you faced challenges dealing with children with the diagnosis? Or?
No, the motivation was that I did want everyone who saw children or who see children now to be able to recognize who might be on the spectrum. I've learned so much over the years. I've learned from our team at the Waisman Center. I've learned from parents and children. I've learned so much. I just wanted to share it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
What do physicians look for? What are some telltale signs?
Delayed speech is probably the most common presentation, but parents may notice poor eye contact. They may notice their child doesn't interact like their other children in a social way. So some of those kind of concerns coming to a doctor or a primary care provider should raise a pink flag.
What progress has been made in treatment? Is there a cure?
No, there's no magic cure for it. There's no fad intervention that's going to work. What works is the hard, everyday work of parenting. And for parents to hang in there, because people can help you get to where your child is as successful as they can be.
That's a positive and a reassuring thing to hear, but this is a devastating diagnosis for parents.
It usually is. I have been in situations where parents are like, well, finally somebody said this.
We know what's going on.
Yeah. But most of the time it is a life-altering, at least, diagnosis.
Are the incidences of Alzheimer's,
autism,
thank you, autism spectrum disorder on the rise? There's a perception that cases are increasing. Is that the reality?
Well, there are more children and adults being diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, but we have radically changed the criteria. So we've changed the whole definition of what autism is, and therefore people with milder conditions are getting included. They still have to have trouble with social skills, trouble with communication in a back and forth way, but yes, it's just a very broad spectrum.
So the diagnosis has changed.
Yes.
So if you have a child that you are concerned about, tell your doctor about this book.
That's right. Yeah,
there we go.
That's a good start.
Good to see you. Thanks
Thank
for being
you
with us.
so
Congratulations on the book.
Thank you for asking.
Congratulations, Tina. Good to see you.
We'll be right back.
Well, after a couple rounds of freezing rain and even some snow earlier today, high-resolution Doppler has now started to clear things out. That's good news, but we are still keeping a very close eye on the area roadways simply because they're wet and temperatures are hovering around the freezing mark. I don't think there are going to be a lot of issues, but folks, as we go through the next couple of hours, as you begin to head home, still, please use that caution and get home safely. 3 things to know, though, as we begin to clear out tonight, we are going to get cold. So that means you're going to want to make sure you have the heavy coats on hand, especially for kids headed to the bus stop tomorrow morning. Then all eyes are on the weekend. That's where I think the ingredients are going to come together for a potentially impactful weather event across southern Wisconsin. Once again, Friday into Saturday, and there could be some precipitation type issues. But still, we have winter storm watches for our western counties as we speak, and those winter storm watches really go all the way back through southern parts of Missouri, all the way into parts of Kansas as well. And here's what I think is going on. We have high pressure keeping that Arctic air in place over Canada. Now, we're going to watch that high slide its way over just towards the south and east as we go through time. So that's going to bring that colder air towards the south. At the same time, a storm system is likely going to be developing in the plains, and this is going to be tapping into a lot of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico and driving that towards the upper Midwest. This is the reason that forecasters are once again watching the weekend for a chance for accumulating snow. Still, though, there are plenty of questions that we have to answer, but watch how things begin to play out. This is Future Track. Pay attention to by the time we get you towards Thursday evening. Still, things are clear. High pressure remains in control for us, but by Friday, this is 3:30, we're starting to get that evening commute time started. This is when we start to see snow breaking out through parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, all the way down to parts of Illinois and Missouri. And that could stick around with us as we go through Saturday and into your early portions of Saturday afternoon as well. Now, one of the things that that model did not show that I am keeping an eye on is the possibility of a little bit of a wintry mix and freezing rain as you work your way down towards our southern counties. This is Saturday morning, and this model of Future Track shows you that threat for ice along with plain rain in extreme southern Wisconsin. So once again, just like last weekend, we're watching these areas for the potential of icing issues as that better snow threat is going to be higher towards the north and west. So Thursday, some slick spots may be possible just on the roads from what's on the ground now, but I do think we're going to be staying dry. But as you have plans to travel Friday night into your Saturday, know that snow will be moving in to bring impacts towards that evening commute, and then we'll begin to see that wintry mix as we move into your Saturday as well. Tonight, though, look for those lows falling down towards 6 degrees. We'll only see those highs right around 15 as we head into tomorrow. You factor in the wind chill as folks head out to the bus stop tomorrow morning, and that's where we're going to see wind chills perhaps as cold as 10 degrees below zero. That is the reason I'm telling you. Make sure you have those jackets ready to go. Keep a close eye Friday night into Saturday, simply because we could have impactful weather. It's still too early to talk about the official snow amounts, but we're watching them and we'll keep you up to date.
All right. We learned a lesson last weekend.
We learned a lesson last weekend. Weather is... It's hectic. Yes, it is.
All right, thank you, Chris. Let's head back to Washington now, where Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has received the articles of impeachment from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and he is making some remarks.
With the allocations and provisions I now send to the desk, and I ask that it be printed in the record.
Is there objection? If not, so ordered.
I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to the consideration of SRS 471 submitted earlier today.
The clerk will report.
Senate Resolution 471, authorizing the taking of a photograph in the chamber of the United States Senate.
Is there objection to proceeding to the consideration? Without objection, then the Senate will proceed.
I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Without objection, so ordered.
Now, Mr. President, for the information of all senators, a few minutes ago, the Senate was notified that the House of Representatives is finally ready to proceed with their articles of impeachment. So by unanimous consent, we have just laid some of the groundwork that will structure the next several days. We've officially invited the House managers to come to the Senate tomorrow at noon to exhibit their articles of impeachment. Then later tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m., the Chief Justice of the United States will arrive here in the Senate. He will be sworn in by the President pro tem, Senator Grassley. Then the Chief Justice will swear in all of us senators. We'll pledge to rise above the petty factionalism and do justice for our institutions, for our states, and for the nation. And then we will formally notify the White House of our pending trial and summon the President to answer the articles and send his counsel. So the trial will commence in earnest on Tuesday. But first, Mr. President, some important good news for the country. We anticipate the Senate will finish the USMCA tomorrow and send this landmark trade deal to President Trump for his signature. A major victory for the administration, but more importantly, for American families. So let me close with this. This is a difficult time for our country, but this is precisely the kind of time for which the framers created the Senate. I'm confident this body can rise above short-termism and factional fever and serve the long-term best interest of our nation. We can do this, and we must.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell announcing that the trial for the impeachment of President Trump will start next Tuesday. We'll be right back.
Mr. Alexander.
Well, take a look at this. A teen politician in Maryland is making a name for himself with an unusual platform. Better toilet paper for all. Sariki Frazier is the newly elected student body president at Cabin John Middle School, and his first order of business is to get the school's toilet paper upgraded. He took his two-ply TP plea straight to the school budget officers. Frazier proposed the proposed upgrade would require an annual budget increase of about $31,000. It's not clear if the 14-year-old's proposal will make the cut, but it's clear he believes officials wouldn't be flushing money down the drain. And we'll be right back. Welcome back. UW Health has seen a surge in people willing to donate a kidney to a total stranger. 28 people last year became non-directed donors.
That is the largest number of donors at any one hospital in 1 year in the country. And joining us today to talk more about what a non-directed donation is and why we have so many humanitarians here in the Madison area is UW Health's transplant coordinator for non-directed kidney donation, Lisa Warnke. Lisa, good to see you.
Welcome.
Thank you for being here. Yes. So what is a non-directed donation and how is that different than a living kidney donation?
Sure. So a non-directed donor does not have a recipient in mind. So they want to do this out of the goodness of their heart and have done their research and know that kidney disease is a problem and they want to just help someone in need.
Why did that number skyrocket so recently?
So there's a few reasons we think. One is society in general just wants to help people. That's my personal theory. It's a pretty rough world right now, and this is a way for them to see this ripple effect happen. But also we've really amped up our focus on non-directed donors because their gift can help not one person, but many through an exchange program.
That's the fascinating part of it. It's a ripple effect. But what does it take if I decided I want to be a non-directed donor and donate a kidney? What do I have to go through to do that? So
it's quite an intense process, and we make it that way because it is an elective procedure. We have a multidisciplinary team that asks us to do many tests on donors that come in voluntarily, and then we sit down as a multidisciplinary team and look at their medical, psychological, nutrition has a say in it, social work has a say in it, and we monitor them for 2 years afterwards too. So
there is a risk to the donor.
Yes, absolutely. There's no medical benefit to donors at all.
Mentally, there is.
Mentally, yes. I mean, the stories we hear every day of what it means to them is just the best part of the job, for sure.
Do the donors ever meet up?
They do.
That's got to be pretty cool.
I don't know if you've searched social media, but there are groups there's athletes that have a living donor Facebook page, and you know, it's just become this huge health advocacy as well, and that's where we see the ripple effect too.
So if you're interested, just pick up the phone, give the UW a call.
Well, not that easy.
But that's where you start.
Yes, we would like people to do their research and see if it's now's a good time. But yes, we have a screening form that they can use, and then we give them a call if they meet the mark.
What a gift.
What greatest gift you could possibly give.
Yeah. Thanks for being with us today.
These are great to see you.
Thank you.
We'll have a final check of your weather coming up. Could be a little slippery out there.
Yeah, we're going to watch for some slick spots. Roads are mostly wet, but temperatures are dropping in a big way tonight, and it's going to get too cold for a lot of that salt to work. Look for those overnight lows down around 6 degrees. You factor in the wind, and by the time kids are headed towards the bus stop tomorrow morning, those wind chills could be down around -10. So make sure the folks are bundling up, especially the teenagers that don't want to listen. Make sure they're
right. All right, thank you,
Thanks, Chris.
Tomorrow here on Live at 4, we'll visit the 2020 Renewable Energy Summit in Madison.
And Marquette Law School poll director Charles Franklin will be here with the results and analysis of his latest poll. That's coming up tomorrow on Live at 4.